Hello, and welcome to the Tavern Chat Podcast. I am your host, Eric Tenkar, your bartender in the OSR, your main proprietor at the Tenkar's Tavern blog. With me today is Melkor from the Savage Gods podcast. We've spoken to a few of his compatriots prior, but now we have Melkor. Melkor, welcome.
Thank you. It's also known by the name of Strange Gods podcast.
Strange Gods podcast. Thank you. What the hell did I just say?
Savage Gods. That's a better name though.
Savage Gods. What you know? What? To be, I'm gonna plead the I've been entertaining an 8-year-old niece all day, as my brain is fried aspect on this one.
Right.
I beg forgiveness.
Well, we've got some other Strange Gods people on right now. Go on there quick, guys. Buy that domain name, just in case.
And if you can't buy it with .com or .org, you now have .games.
Oh, neat.
Oh yeah, I have Tenkar's Tavern .games. I use that for some of my shortened URLs.
That's funny. I work for a telecom company, and we have like a guest Wi-Fi. And if I tried to log on to our own website the other day, and it blocked me, saying it was a games website.
You know, go figure. I know my blog. I've had people complain that my blog gets blocked, and other people are like, "I'm amazed that they don't block your blog." I'm like, "All right, though."
I think it's how we're listed. I think it's listed as a blog.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I guess you're getting enough traffic to actually rank to be blocked.
Yeah, you would think. Yeah, that'd make me happy, but yeah.
Yeah, so hey, whatever works, man. Whatever works. All right, we're gonna start the part of this that is as close to having rails as I'm willing to do. I'm gonna ask you 5 questions that are mostly about like your gaming history. So, tell us about your first RPG experience.
Well, my first RPG was kind of thrust upon me in I want to say it was the early 1990s. I think it was either 92 or 93. For Christmas, my parents got me a small box set called The City State of the Invincible Overlord by Mayfair Games.
And I have that.
Yeah, I'm actually trying to find a hard copy of that because it's very nostalgic. I don't know what happened to it. But my parents bought that for me, not really knowing what it was. So after doing some research, and my brother actually had started playing D&D a few months before that, we figured out it was D&D, and then my parents didn't quite realize that at that point I had to buy dice, I had to buy the DM's guide, I had to buy the player's guide, and the monstrous manual. So after about $100 later, I had my first DM game going on.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, my mother was great. She started me with the player's handbook, the DMG, and a high quality set of dice. The only thing I was missing was the monster manual. And
that was the last one I got.
And my problem was I didn't realize like what hit dice and hit points were from reading the DMG. So I didn't understand why would ogres be 4+1 hit die HD. I mean that's just 5 hit points. So that first summer, my players were blowing through every dungeon I did. A hill giant is what 8+1, so that's 9 hit points. Yeah, it hits hard, but
probably new too. They're like, don't tell them.
Well, once I finally realized it, like my party was all like 7th and 8th level, nobody had died, and I was like, oh, we've been playing wrong.
Yeah, that's great.
So what is your go-to RPG system and why?
At this point, I think it's Pathfinder. I enjoy 5e, but Pathfinder to me, I'm a huge logic person. In high school, I flew through calculus, but I had a hard time with English and all that stuff. I'm a numbers logical person, and Pathfinder has a rule for everything, and that just makes me excited. I have no idea why. I like logistics. So that is where I naturally gravitate towards. So Pathfinder is you can customize a lot more. There's a lot more set in stone. And if you wanted to delve a bit deeper into rules or into mechanics, there's something written already. If not, there's something you can base off of. 5e to me is more of it's a fast and loose system, kind of. It's fun if you just want to sit down and play. that's great. But to me, if you wanted to make a campaign, to me, Pathfinder just makes so much more sense.
It's interesting that you mentioned calculus because I thought I was really good at math until I got to pre-calc, and that's where it just fell apart for me. I was like, yeah, this isn't math. This is like math science,
Right.
and I that just didn't work.
Yeah,
But
my
now,
first year in college, I took Calc 1 through 4 the same year.
wow, first year of college, they told me to take pre-calc. I took it and dropped it halfway through the semester when I think my best grade on anything I handed in was like a 19. I was
Right.
like, trigonometry was fine, but man, pre-calc, a
Yeah.
whole different language.
Yeah, it's a whole new
N-
realm there.
Now, since you mentioned Pathfinder, before we move on to the rest of these questions, I'm going to ask you a question. Have you checked out the Pathfinder 2 beta?
I have.
And what's your opinion on it? I've heard different opinions on it. I downloaded it. I haven't looked at it, but I like to hear the opinion on this one.
So far, so good. There's a lot of stuff that needs some tweaking, in my opinion. I can't say that I know all the rules by heart, but I've gone through. I've played a few games, and then I've watched other people play. I like the new combat mechanics. I feel like they're kind of diluted or complicated some of the rules, like as far as initiative goes. I like what they did, but I kind of don't like what they did at the same time. The initiative roll is basically conditional and changes per your class and anything else. So there's no longer an initiative. It's more of what are you doing and who are you. So to me, that's kind of it's more of, if you're going to do that, still have an initiative, just base it off of something different. Don't keep changing as the game goes. So there's little rules like that kind of irk me a little bit, but I think I don't disagree with them. I just I guess I just don't like the change. It seems a little unnecessary.
What do you think the compatibility is to Pathfinder 1E?
I think it's going to be. I don't think it's going to be an easy transition. I don't think it's going to be very smooth. As far as like if you were to pick up, like a Pathfinder 1 scenario and try to play it to the 2.0 rules, I don't think it's going to be very easy to translate over. Some of the stuff might be, but it's not going to be a simple conversion.
And I think part of that issue is usually when a game system goes to a new edition, it isn't just a reboot of the rules, but it's a reboot of the marketplace.
Yeah.
And this is a reboot of the marketplace. Pathfinder has to respond to 5e, certainly.
Yeah.
And you can only have so many support material out for an edition before you start pretty much eating away at your own market. So
Yeah,
too much compatibility. Yeah, I think too much compatibility would ruin or plant some bad seeds into the new market if you could easily port stuff. I'm sure they're going to give a whole free PDF on how best to transition from 1E to 2E.
Yeah,
but
how to convert a character, yeah.
Yeah, but like you said, it's not going to be easy because if it was easy, then all your prior support material still works, and then there's no reason to buy new support material. So
yeah, I get spoiled with like if you've played Call of Cthulhu between systems, it's actually ridiculously easy to translate stuff. If you've got something 6th edition and you got something 7th edition, like a stat, they did 1 through 20 before, now they do 1 to 100. So you take the stat, multiply it by 5, and boom, you're converted. So it's I like more like an easier I would like to be able to convert on the fly, and I don't think that that's going to be possible. So I think it's having that many fundamental changes is gonna to me, like, Pathfinder has so much good material out there, and it's not like they're gonna discontinue it or anything like that, but I feel like they should build off of it instead of try to replace it. That's my thought.
And you know what? I would agree with your thought, but probably doesn't drive the market that they're looking for. And my personal opinion is if Starfinder had done, they're saying that Starfinder is a success. I'm not saying it isn't, but I think they expected that to drive the numbers of a new edition of Pathfinder would, and I don't think it did. Otherwise, you wouldn't have Pathfinder 2e coming out so close behind the big Starfinder launch.
Yeah, I have a feeling that they didn't actually expect Starfinder to be a hit. If you look at the supporting material, they definitely did not plan on it to be as popular as it was. But yeah, I find it interesting. I was listening to an interview with what is his name? Eric. I'm drawing a blank. One of the designers, basically, what they did is they had a meeting at one point, and they said, "All right, what do we want to do? How can we improve Pathfinder?" So they took a bunch of ideas, kind of threw them on the table, and they took those ideas and basically made these two editions from it. So the Starfinder rules and the 2E rules stem from the same conversation, but they're two different splits from it. So it's neat to see, like, if you look at those two systems and compare them to Pathfinder, like, you can see like what their logic was and why they wanted to change certain things. But yeah, I mean, I really like the Starfinder rules, but it's the same type of deal. To me, that makes more sense, obviously, because it's a whole new system. Makes it easy to get into it, but.
And science fiction is always a harder sell when it comes to RPGs than fantasy, which is strange because science fiction is an easier sell in movies and on TV series than fantasy is.
Yeah, it was Eric Moniz who I was thinking of it. It
there
was funny.
You go.
The same interview. He said that at some point, someone pitched the idea, and he goes, "The only way I'm going to be okay with creating a sci-fi RPG is if you can play a gas." And I can't remember the name of the race. Bear is on it here. You won't remember, but there is a playable gaseous form in Pathfinder and Starfinder.
Oh, interesting.
That was his one caveat to creating the game.
There you go. All right, let's move on to our next question. Now you came in with AD&D.
Yep.
But racist class was a big thing in Basic Expert BECME. Where do you stand on racist class as opposed to race and class being separate and building off each other, kind of?
I like the idea. I think originally it was D&D was the world of humans, so it was all told from the human perspective. So if you were like if you played, trying to think of a good race, like an elf for the most part. I mean, you were a magic user, you were an elf. In modern is more of it's a bit more inclusive. It's like you can play anybody you want, you can do anything you want. I would love to see like the coexistence with that. Like if you could play an elf and have basically the elven class would be an option, and then you can kind of add pieces of other classes, and I think that'd be neat. But yeah, like to me, it just made sense to me because that's where I started. But yeah, I mean, I guess they kind of keep it with the racial traits and things like that. But I feel like they should put more into it. Seems like they're moving further away from that.
Yeah, I mean, I always saw racial restrictions should be more setting based.
Yeah.
And I guess I guess you could do racist class and just say this is how the average world is if you were doing something like basic D&D, and then you could say, well, there are exceptions, and in this setting, dwarves can be healers and clerics.
Yeah.
But
yeah, and I like that, especially, and that was another reason I'm a big Pathfinder fan. Is you can be anything, you can do anything, and in fact, part of 2.0 is that they do away with half elves. They basically give you like a option to breed your ancestry, so you can be half dwarf, half elf instead of half human, half elf. They're kind of doing away with that, but to me, it's like I would like to see more of the racial focus. Like to me, it seems like older editions, if you were a dwarf, you had better bonuses to it. It seems like 5e, you're almost penalized for playing anything but a human.
Really?
The human class, especially if you take the variant, I mean, you get a feat at level 1, and you get you pretty much get the same ability buffs as everybody else. So it's it's like, why wouldn't you want to play a human?
I got you. I've yet to play 5e. I own the rules. I've skimmed them. I guess if I was going to be in a game, I'd read them a bit more in depth. But it's like with my Pathfinder rules, I've read them, but I've never put them into play. So I'm not able to speak any kind of depth on the rules.
Yeah.
You need to actually play it, I think, to be able to do that, and I don't have that.
5e to me, I like it because it's the easiest to jump into. Especially anytime I talk to people that want to get into RPGs, I suggest them to go to 5e. I do tell them that I like Pathfinder better, and if you want to play with me, I'll play Pathfinder. But if you want to get the feel for the RPG, jump into 5e. It's a lot easier. A couple steps, boom, you have a character. If you get the player's handbook, it takes you 2-3 minutes to make a character. And you're ready to go. Pathfinder's a little bit more in depth. Got to put a little bit more thought into it.
Yeah, I mean, the Pathfinder beginner box when that shipped, yep. I had pre-ordered that, and I devoured that. I was like, wow, this is a version of Pathfinder that I felt comfortable with after sitting down with it for like 2 hours. I was like, I could run this. Yep. And I'd always hoped they would actually do like a Pathfinder beginner's box 2 or expert box kind of, but they did a really good, that was not just a great presentation, the amount of material you got in that box that you could use in any fantasy RPG was amazing.
Yeah, I've bought that, and I bought the D&D starter set, and I liked the I think it was, I'm trying to think what came with. I think that the D&D starter set had the better adventure in it, but the Pathfinder had the better setup. It had the tokens, it had the playmat, it had everything you needed to actually sit down and play.
Yep.
But it's got Lost Mines of Phandelver and the 5e game, and to me, that's just it's a better scenario to get into. But
that to me read very well, but. Yep. The tokens or the pogs or whatever you want to call it, the amount that you got for the price of that box, and it's something that you can continue using, whether you're using a full Pathfinder rules, D&D 5e, anything which you're going to put a battle mat out for. Again, well worth the investment.
Oh yeah, definitely.
All right, so where do you stand on the save or die mechanic?
I like it so long as it's known ahead of time that it's involved.
Okay.
If you're playing a long campaign setting and it's never been introduced before, I feel like the DM may have an obligation to say, hey, there are things in this dungeon that may be save or die. No matter what it is, where it is, if it's something that your players aren't used to, because if you have a game that players have been around, if you've been playing this for a year and it's been pretty easy, players are all willy-nilly, and it's like, oh, all right, poison gas trap, you're dead, you're flat out dead, and it's something they're not expecting. I think that's just kind of ruins fun for everybody. But if it's something where hey, this is a lethal situation, you put a little bit more thought into it, and the blow isn't so bad when your PC dies. Overall, I'm a big fan.
Pretty much forewarned is forearmed, I guess.
Yeah. So long as it's in the social contract. Hey, you may die with a bad roll. I think if it's known ahead of time, it's like, we're gonna go easy on you. We're not gonna go easy on you. As long as it's set ahead of time. I'm a big fan.
Yeah, don't blindside your players, basically.
Exactly. Yep.
All right. Our last question. What would the teenage you think if they could see what you would accomplish in the hobby at this point in your life?
I don't know.
Would the teenage you even think you'd still be in the hobby at this point in your life?
I would think so. But the teenage me, unfortunately, got out of RPGs because he learned how to play Magic the Gathering, and things just went downhill from there. But I think I'd be very happy with it. I think one of my dreams was always to open a hobby shop, open a card store, you know.
Right.
So yeah, I think you'd be satisfied.
Okay. Yeah, my experience with Magic the Gathering is amazingly enough, being smart enough to buy decks when it was still the beta release.
Yeah.
And I think I turned $100 investment into about $2,500 because I had Black Lotus when it was before it was banned.
Yeah.
I never really played it much, but I unloaded the good cards almost as quickly as I saw the prices. I was like, "You want to give me how much for that?"
Yeah, I got into it on Unlimited. I think I bought a pack of Legends for $10, I believe. So yeah, I got into it early. I was pretty young. Most of my good cards at the time, I probably sold them, before I was 16 years old. Like I at the time, it's like, oh crap, you'll give me $20 for Black Lotus? Oh, that's it.
Those.
Yeah, I mean, I had a few. I think the best cards I had were dual lands. I had a Chaos Orb, and like an All Hallows Eve, I think. I mean, I had stuff that was. It's obviously worth a good amount of money now, but at the time, it was like, yeah, all right, I'll give you this for a pack of cards,
Hey, I tried. My issue was I wasn't able to convince anybody in my gaming group to play Magic the Gathering.
Yeah, see, I had the opposite problem. I couldn't convince people to not play and to sit down and play some D&D. I actually stopped playing D&D right before 3rd edition came out.
Wow, okay, that's yeah. I stopped playing at the same time. I stopped playing in March of '97.
Yep.
And for me, it was because my job changed from having every Sunday off to having Wednesday, Thursday off, and working 2:00 in the morning. There was no gaming group, and there was no virtual tabletops to try to squeeze anything in otherwise. So,
yeah,
I was out for a good 10 years.
Yeah, it took me. I played off and on. I didn't fully get back involved until maybe about 3 years ago, and it was with what really. I mean, there were a few TV shows and podcasts and stuff that I listened to, and I kept saying, "Yeah, I should get back into that." But as soon as I saw the Strange Eons AP from Pathfinder, at that point, I was like, I am going to learn how to play Pathfinder. We need to play this. And we did. That was the first AP I ran getting back into it. So, yeah. But yeah, beyond that, I played it off and on. I learned 3.5 at some point, but I'd never played any solid games in that interim time frame.
Yeah, my interim, I had I bought the 3.0 rules, the 3.5 rules, Pathfinder. I bought the rules, bought the release when they came out. I was still collecting RPGs, and finally I was able to get back into it.
Yeah, that's kind of how I am now. I keep hearing about great new RPGs, so I'll grab the books. If I can't find them, I'll buy the PDFs or something like that. It's actually how I learned about Frog God Games, the Blight, all that stuff was from Humble Bundle. Once in a while, they have a good package on there. It's like $15 for all these.
Oh God, yeah.
For all these PDFs. I'm like, yeah, screw it. I'll jump on it. I mean, I probably won't have time to play, but yeah, I want to read these. So that's what happened. I bought one of them where they had the 5e version of the Blight. And as soon as I got that, you can ask my players. It's like, we're going to play this. Like at some point, we are playing this game.
Yeah, the Blight is. I have it in print for Swords and Wizardry, and it's one of those books that I pick it up and I'll read a chapter, and then have to put it down for a couple of weeks because the chapter I read was really, really. I don't want to say heavy, but there's a lot going on, and it's a dark setting.
Yeah.
But it's a well-written and good setting. It's a vibrant setting, yet it's dark. So it's just a lot to absorb, and it's like yeah, if I read this straight through, and I'll probably get depressed.
But yeah, what I love is that for especially for the actual like we're playing through the adventure in the actual guidebook. Um, it's really well written, and it takes into account. It says make sure you describe the sounds, the smells, everything else that's going on. So it really tries to take you to the location. It really wants you to set the tone.
Oh yeah, it's great for that, and the artwork in the book is spot on. Really,
Yeah.
the art choices were amazing. On the printed page, it jumps out at you. So
Yeah, I guess I should explain why we're talking about that too. Our second podcast should be coming out relatively soon. It's going to be called Swords and Misery, and we'll be playing the Blight, the Swords and Wizardry version of that. Pretty exciting.
I've told other members of your team, but I'm going to tell you this also. When that releases, ping me, email me, PM me on Discord, however you got to find me. I am a huge Swords and Wizardry fanboy because it plays a lot like how our AD&D one he played when we dropped all the rules that we didn't understand.
Yep.
Like weapon speed.
I will tell you as part of a spoiler is that we're not very good at Swords and Wizardry rules. We basically you're looking at a group of people. I think I'm the only one that's ever played anything before 3.5, and putting yourself into a situation where you want less rules, not more. You want to kind of go a lot more with your imagination versus your roles. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I think one of the issues we had was with skills. Like we were trying to find a way where if you have one person that's athletic, he's good at climbing, he's good at throwing stuff, he's good at this stuff, but there's no way to have a like a tangible advantage with that. So what we did is we kind of house ruled a real simple skill set. I think it's based off of the Labyrinth Lord.
Axe, maybe? Venture Conqueror King system. I think that's based off of Labyrinth Lord, and they have a basic skill system in those rules.
Yeah, basically. Well, I'll explain how we do it. We're doing the the 1 in 6 system, or so basically based off of your relevant skill, and then we'll give you a modifier. Just based off of who you are. When we created the character, we picked 2 things that you were exceedingly good at, and then we just improved it from 1 in 6 to 2 in 6 to 3 in 6, depending what factors into it. So.
Lamentations of the Flame Princess Weird Fantasy does that with the thief skills. And when I put together the Swords and Wizardry Light rules, I did that for the thief skills also, because it made it a lot simpler when somebody coming in to gaming, which is what the 4 pages of Swords and Wizardry rules broken down to is for. You just give 2 dice, a D20 and a D6. It's simplified.
Yeah.
All that explanation, and then that was James Raggy, and that's one of the better things that he brought in to the old school gaming was the Thief D6 system, which apparently if you go back far enough with OG&D, there was a variant that apparently used the D6 even back then for thief skills, but there's no reason why you can't use that for I think ranger abilities and other classes that have skill sets. Even like you said, even basic things like, if you want somebody who has experience at riding a horse, well, if you've done it a couple of times successfully in the campaign, why shouldn't you have a rating in it? And why shouldn't you be able to get better at it?
Right. And basically we keep it as, we try to do it as, if there is a thief, the thief can do this dexterous stuff, but the only time we'll have him make a check is if there's something that is just really difficult to do, that we think, or that I feel there is a chance you might fail at it, so for the most part, it'll be, you can do it. No, you can't do it. But then when it's if it's up in the air, we'll use the skill and see how the die
falls.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I can listen if it's having to pick a skeleton key lock, that should be something that somebody learned on basically right from the start. Should be easy enough to do. Complex locks or a lock under stress. The orcs are bittering down at the party, shooting arrows, and you got to pick that lock and that door to get the party out. Yeah, I could see stressful situation. You don't have time. I guess that'd be like taking 20 and 3.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I'm trying to think what else we butchered. We did butcher a couple of other rules. So I have a feeling
you can't butcher rules in old school gaming. Old school gaming is all about house rules. We house ruled when I was playing back in the early '80s, but we didn't call it house ruling. It was just, we're going to use a little common sense because weapon speed, segments, armor class adjustments by weapon type, and all these other little bits and pieces made no sense to us. We couldn't, or slow down the game to the point where it wasn't fun. So we dropped it, but we didn't even consider that to be house ruling. And I used to, I spent a session one time with my gaming group when I came back to gaming. We did this on the VTT. Actually, I don't know if we recorded it on YouTube or not. I'd have to check. But I ran a session. I ran it as written using the AD&D 1E/Osric rules, and it was the most miserable experience that we ever had. I'll never do it again.
Yeah.
I
remember now. It was the whole death mechanic. We were one of the PCs should have died during the second game. I probably shouldn't say that. I'm going to spoil something. But what we did instead is we stole somebody's table that they use. Basically, it's like we call it like the mortal wound table. So you would roll a d20, add how many points you would be below 0, and then go off of the table. So if you roll it and you get a 1, you're back up again. If you roll it and you get a 25, you're absolutely dead, no recovery.
Right, and somewhere in the middle, maybe you got a limp now, or
exactly. Yep. And I like that with Swords and Wizardry too. Is that a lot of stuff is more permanent. You don't think of, hey, all right, hit me with that wand. It's a lot more life and death.
It is, and it's my preferred rule set at this point. Although I enjoy taking bits and pieces from others, like obviously you guys do, and there's no reason not to. Again, that's I don't think that any 2 games of Swords and Wizardry that are being run, or any 2 campaigns, are run the same way. I run convention games for Frog God these days as a Bad Mike, and we will run Swords and Wizardry, and we're both running the same rule set, but we both do things differently. And I do think that's part of, what can turn some people off to old school gaming, is that you don't necessarily have a consistency of even the same rule set at different tables. But at the same time, I think that's an appeal to it, because you kind of have rules that are adjusted for the campaign or your group's leanings, as opposed to something that is more rigid in structure.
Yeah, I think it's from most of our gaming backgrounds and my love of logistics, it's tough to go. It's like, all right, all those rules, screw them, throw them out the window. You're not doing that. It's tough to step back and say, no, just let the game go. Like, there's not a rule for that. Let's figure it out. It's fun. It's just it's hard to go from such a tight rule set to a more loose, hey, if you can think it, you can do it.
I was in a group that had that problem when we were play testing what became the 5e rules, D&D Next, and our GM put together a group that he wanted old school gamers, he wanted Pathfinder player, 4e players. He wanted to get a group of 6 or 7 players together that had different backgrounds, and we had an encounter with goblins or kobolds or something like that, and it was pretty much we were going to be overrun unless we took off. And one of our old school gamers made this huge speech and passionate speech about why we shouldn't be attacked and what we could promise. And the GM liked what was said and said, "All right, you know what? They're going to give you a little time." And our 4E player had a meltdown because that should have been handled by a dice roll. And for most of us, I could have said, you know what, it can go for me. It could have been either way. Make it a morale check or persuasion check, but I guess like even 5e now doesn't pinhole you that tightly to skills that the player's role playing can't change a situation.
Yeah.
For the 4E player we had in our group, he actually literally burned out and quit at the end of the session. We were like 3 sessions into it. That was his final story. He had other issues that he didn't like, which included things about like, you know, we weren't keeping a combat map up on the screen. It was more theater of the mind, but that was it. But
it kind of brings up a different subject. Is that everybody? I missed the whole 4th edition thing. I never played it, but from what I understand, a lot of people didn't like it. But the more I'm delving into it, is the more I want to sit down and try it, because it does seem, I don't know, it seems interesting to me. I've never played it, but it seems a lot more modular. Yeah, hard to explain, but it does seem like it could be a fun system. But
I think again, I never played it, but I did own the rules. I did try reading through the 4E core books, and then when they reissue them as like trade paperbacks, kind of, and try to make it a little bit easier. It was a lot about class balance from my perspective, and everybody having a role to play in pretty much every situation. So you shouldn't have I don't know, an encounter where the magic user has nothing to do. He's always got at-will power to do something.
You got the linear growth versus the exponential growth.
Yeah,
like Swords Wizardry, the cleric can't do anything on the first level.
Well, here's a house rule that I use even in my campaign games. If you have a wisdom of 15 or higher, I give you a first level spell.
Yeah.
So, and at first level, so you have that slot. You have a high enough wisdom, you're getting a bonus spell. You're still a one-trick pony. With old school gaming, your spellcasters tend to be pretty weak for the first 2 or 3 levels before they can get a little flexibility built into them, which something like, especially like I guess 5e has done more to make them useful at all levels.
Yeah, 5e is they really they tried to make it a little bit more linear. Like you've got the warlock class. You probably have the greatest cantrip in the game, the Eldritch Blast, and as you go, you just make that better as you go. So you have cantrips that are actually useful. There's stuff that you can do. You've got these unlimited spells. If I remember correctly, too, I haven't played this in a long time, but I think 2nd edition, you didn't have free cantrips, right?
2nd edition, you know what? You did have cantrips, I believe, in 2nd edition, but they were 0 level spells. And I think they were introduced. Now what? I was going to say an Arcana, but I don't know. But they were pretty much pointless because it was things like change color.
Yeah.
Grow hair. It wasn't anything that was going
Detect
to
soaps.
Yeah. Clean room, whatever. I mean, it was literally minor magics. You could swap 1 first level spell, I think, for like 4 cantrips.
Yep.
But I think 3rd edition is where you started getting some useful cantrip or basic abilities for spellcasters. So there's been that progression's been in the game ever since Even between what 1E and 2E, between 1E and 2E, like your paladin and your ranger got spells earlier than they did in first edition, and I'm man, it's been a while since I looked at my third edition rules, but I think they kept that, or maybe even brought it to a lower level where those spell casting abilities came into play.
Right. Yeah, actually, when looking into Swords and Wizardry, I went back and I read copies of like first edition books. I went and read like the Greyhawk campaign setting. I looked at a couple of like the Forgotten Realms. There was I was looking at different initiative systems, and that's kind of something we're a little hung up on too. I like the we go then you go kind of initiative order. So we're trying to stick to that, but it's a little tough to get used to it. I like it better. It's a lot more strategy based, but again, it's hard to put yourself in that thinking position versus, all right, I'm going to go, then you go, then that goblin goes, then this person goes.
My personal opinion is I do side by side initiative. I've also done it where all right, your side rolled a 6, the goblins roll a 5, your side all goes first.
Yep.
But I've also played where if you tie, that's when somebody with a dexterity of like 15 or better gets to go first before everybody else.
Yep.
So or if your party loses by 1 and they have a high enough dex, and those people can sneak in their attack with the goblins. But I used to do an individual initiative back with the AD&D times, and I'll never do it again because it's just too much to keep track of. And I'm going to tell you another secret. Matt Finch, who wrote the Swords and Wizardry rules, when he runs convention games, he'll run conventions with games with 18, 20, 22 people at his table. He doesn't do initiative. He does an initiative roll, but like the party order isn't like, all right, you make your attack. Who wants to go first? No, it's by dexterity. So on your side, when your side gets to take their action, highest dex person goes first, lowest dex person goes last. So it also changes the dynamics. It's not written in the rules anywhere. That's how Matt runs things at conventions. I don't know how he does it at home, but it's an interesting thing where it's like, oh, so now our high dex people are pretty much setting the tone.
Yeah, it's interesting to see the different takes on it, because I'm just so used to the 3.5 and on, where it's like, okay, you have your dex modifier plus some other random stuff, roll a d20, and then we're going to base it off of that. It does seem relatively arbitrary, especially, depending on your situation. It's like, all right, well, whoever has the potential to move fastest can go.
Right.
Not every situation that actually makes sense, which is in Pathfinder 2nd edition, where they're kind of trying to swap that out a little bit, because if your initiative could be based off perception, it could be based off dex, or it could be based off of stealth. It could use a variety of different modifiers. So it's kind of I like how they did it. It makes more sense, but it also makes it very complicated. So I would love to try to incorporate the one side goes and the other side goes in a Pathfinder game to see how frustrating it makes it.
See, the thing is with OSR gaming, you can't break it by changing stuff around, because the core rules are, compared to Pathfinder or 5e, are relatively simple. So if a small change or large change doesn't work, you can pull it out and it's not going to break anything. House ruling Pathfinder, you could break something, because Pathfinder and 5e are mathematically built to be for a certain balance.
Yep.
And old school gaming, the balance, I think, is in the play, and you can't break it.
Changing the topic quick, I just want to make sure I don't run out of time on this. Something I found today, and I read through the PDF. I kind of skimmed through it, but Matt Colville came out with a book called Strongholds and Followers.
Okay.
which is basically taking the original Strongholds and Followers rules and translating them into 5th edition. Have you seen that book?
I've heard of it. I have not seen it.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Like I like it. It's and it's funny too because I'm looking at it and Pathfinder has a book that basically does all this stuff, but it breaks it down to instead of ruling your keep, you have to have a um, uh, you have a high priest, you've got a warden, you've got all this other stuff. You basically have to roll their stats. You have to keep track of everything. So they break it down into a much more complicated system. And this takes the same idea of the Ultimate Campaign and the original Strongholds, and just makes it a lot simpler. So basically, you have allies, you have neutral parties, and then you have enemies. And there's mass combat rules. So if you hire followers, you have them at your stronghold. If there's some kind of conflict, you can send your followers to attack their stronghold, or vice versa. But I like the idea that they took the original idea of having a keep or having a wizard's tower, and he made it modernized. Very good reading.
I like it just for the idea of the mass combat rules because, to be honest with you, AD&D 1E, AD 2E could not get a usable mass combat rules going that didn't take sessions upon sessions to play out. What probably took an hour on an actual battlefield of that would take you 3 weeks to play it out. It was never good.
Yep.
So
yeah, it's
I'm
nice.
interested.
I would definitely pick it up.
Well, and that touches on something else in a way too. Is that 5e stuff is very convertible or farmable for old school gaming. You can take stuff from 5e and then it's hard to break it into conversion down. And I've spoken to others that convert up commercially, and they prefer 5e over Pathfinder for that because Pathfinder, there are so many, dare I say it, like widgets and switches that you're turning for every character, every creature, that converting it
throw off the balance.
Converting it to something, a different system, whether it's simpler or cross compatible, like in a way like 5e. But 5e and old school rule sets like Swords and Wizardry have a bit of a synergy where you can convert, I guess. And so I've done it on the fly, but I mean, I can never with Pathfinder. The stat blocks alone get me intimidated. So,
right.
Sorry.
Yeah, my what I want to see is Planescape converted to 5e. I want to see them release Planescape. I can die a happy man if that comes out.
I'd like to see Planescape, and I'd like to see Greyhawk. Actually, I'd be happy to see Greyhawk released in the GM's Guild, and have passionate people that know the history and know the fiction or the fictional history behind the setting enough that they can write good support material. I'll be happy with that. But Planescape, Planescape needs a professional touch to bring it back.
Yeah, that's actually what I was playing at the end of the first RPG days. I was playing City State, and then Planescape came out. I bought that like on its release date. I was excited. I saw advertisements in Dungeon Magazine. I was very excited to buy this thing. So I scooped that up, and like, to me, it's such an amazing setting, and it works because it's so easy. It's cheesy, but it's so easy to mix into any campaign.
Oh God,
it's like, all right, the wizard's here. He steps through a door. All right, he steps through it. All right, you're in Sigil.
It's a mix and match. I mean, to be honest, I think the last long AD&D campaign I ran was Dark Sun. I ran a Dark Sun campaign for probably close to a year and a half.
Yeah.
But Whereas Planescape, I like Planescape because it was very freewheeling. But it was like a sandbox with infinite portals. So the world was infinitely large, but still close.
Yep.
Whereas Dark Sun, if you read the adventures it's written, a lot of them were very railroady.
Yeah.
So to get so it took a lot of work to get off that. But yeah, man, Planescape would be an awesome thing to return. But again, I'd want to see them do it justice.
Right. Yeah, I've seen some good conversions. I'm actually trying to convert one of the modules for a group. We've been loosely playing it. We've only played one game so far, but they are on the first layer of hell right now. But trying it out. Well of Worlds, probably one of the better modules to come out for it. So we're giving that a whirl, doing the best I can to convert it to 5e, doing a lot of on the fly stuff.
Well, you know what? If you can do it on the fly, then that again shows you that 5e didn't go too far from its source material, I guess, when it comes to rules. If you can convert on the fly.
Yeah, they did pretty good, but the problem is like a lot of the creatures from second edition or from Planescape have completely different power levels. I'm trying to think. I think it was the Spinagon, which is the Spine Devil. I think was a, if I remember correctly, I could be thinking of something else. It was like it was very high level in the original run, and now it's like a CR 1/2.
Oh, jeez. Okay.
Throwing that in. Oh no, it was the Lemur. The Lemurs were, I think they were CR2s or maybe they were CR1s. There was a scene that called for 2 of them. And I'm going through, it's like CR a quarter. It's like, oh, okay, I should probably add a couple more or something else.
Yeah. I think the Lemurs were, oh God, they 1 or 2 hit dice. They were very low level. Demon. Oh, actually, that's right. The second editions. They weren't demons and devils. They were Bayatsu and whatever else. Yeah. That in and of itself was the shame of 2e, but that's probably a topic for a whole other podcast episode.
Right.
Wow, man, for a hex crawl, we've carried a lot of ground tonight.
Right.
So let me ask you a question before we bow out. When can we expect to see the new podcast release?
It's going to be early February. Not setting a date in stone yet. We've got a couple of things that we have to work on behind the scenes, but it is in production now. We've got plenty of material, but I will say before mid-February it will be out.
All right, very exciting. Hopefully you're out prior to TotalCon, because I'll be driving from New York City to the outskirts of Boston for that one. I'd love to have it playing on my iPhone.
When is that? I'll see what I can
do. Good. I believe it is mid-March, or just past mid-March, because
it'll be fine then.
Yeah, it's not mid-March, February. 21st, 22nd, 23rd, and 24th of February. I guess I'm driving up the first day, 21st.
Right. Yeah, it should be good then.
All right, so you see.
Yeah, I'll send you, if it's not out, I'll send you a sneak peek. We'll give you the pre-release. I think
I can do a tease post on that one. Then that's awesome. No, I realize I'm very excited to actually listen, because in addition to being a Swords Wizardry fan, the Blight, like I said, it's an amazing setting, amazing campaign, and I don't know if and when I'll get a chance to run it or find a group that's running it, like I'm playing it. So to be able to live vicariously through the rest of you will be a good time.
Right. Have you listened to Strange Gods, our flagship?
I actually have the first 2 episodes downloaded on my phone, and they will be probably not tonight, because I won't be getting onto my exercise bike until late, but probably tomorrow. I've decided that since I'm trying to be healthy and I bought an exercise bike, that podcasts will be most of what I'm listening to.
Right. Yeah, that's good.
I don't have a commute anymore. When I had a commute, I used to listen for like an hour and a half a day. Now my podcast listening is maybe 3 hours a week until I got the bike, and now I'm up to like 6. So I'm working on it.
Yeah, and there are better podcasts, so I understand. That's all right.
Dude, it certainly isn't mine.
If you gotta rank podcasts, you know, every one of them in existence, I can understand if you give us like a solid 5th place. That's fine.
Oh no, dude. And to be honest with you, like one of my podcast listening is when I'm like on long drives with my wife, and she likes to listen to stuff they don't want you to know or stuff you should know, which is all like this conspiracy stuff, which is great because it's great seeds for like, you know, I want to write a short adventure or at least get myself some ideas for one. I can steal shit from them, but she although she'll game at conventions, she's not much of a gamer, so I gotta listen to gaming podcasts at home usually. But if it's the Blight and Swords and Wizardry, and I'm the one that's driving, I can force her to listen, so I will.
Yeah, I think you guys will like it. But yeah, I'll do a quick plug though. I mean, if anyone wants to check it out, strangegodspodcast.com. We have a channel here on the tavern as well. You can look for updates there. We were actually thinking of issuing the pre-release on here as well, just as a nice thank you for the people of Tenkar's Tavern. So
I'll definitely share that both on the podcast and on the blog side when it does. Oh, that is, I'm getting a little tingly now. Thank you.
Right.
Awesome. Very cool. Right. Well, Melkor, thank you very much for joining me tonight.
Well, thanks for having me.
It's a Saturday night. I'm sure there were things you could have done besides yap with me and our listeners, but thank you.
Edit podcasts. That's pretty much my free time.
Yeah, believe me, I have a professional scheduler now in Peck, so he told me I'm no longer retired.
Right. I tried to hire Puddle to do that, and she just started throwing stuff at me.
Don't you love it? No, I don't complain. I'm glad that the amount of people I've gotten to speak to and will speak to, and get to know. This is how communities form, is to get to know the people in the community, and there's no better way to do it than.
Oh yeah, it definitely. You know, we've made a lot of friends and contacts through here as well. So, very exciting.
Excellent. All right. On that note, we're going to bid you, our listeners, adieu. Thank you again, as always. Stay safe. Be healthy in this wonderful winter weather. God bless, and I will talk with you all tomorrow. Later, folks.